Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of Review Spew. So today I'm going to be talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League for the final time, and I'm going to be talking about Another Round and Saint Maud. Just going to be reviewing those films. So before we start, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Young Cynics. Now, I'll start off with Zack Snyder's Justice League. So, of course, everyone knows the story, but just in case, I'll go through it again. So, of course, Zack Snyder, after directing Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, was working on his Justice League film when a personal tragedy struck his family, and Avengers director Joss Whedon came in to finish up the production and just basically tidy it up. However, when he got there, I guess Joss Whedon must have thought this is not something that I want or the audience, the overall mainstream Marvel audience, I guess, would like. So he re-edited, reshot, and recolorized scenes, and we got 2017 Justice League, this weird, strange, rushed movie that felt completely out of sync with the rest of the DC universe. However, when watching it, because I definitely remember this, the crowd was laughing and having a good time. So in that sense, he did make a crowd pleaser, but of course, for the fans of Zack Snyder's work and the DCU so far, those people were not happy at all. So after years of campaigning, we finally have Zack Snyder's Justice League, or the Snyder Cut. So yesterday I did a review where I was just rambling and bubbling about ideas and what I thought about the film. But today, I think I just clarify them. I've got a list of positives and negatives right in front of me. So I'm just going to go through them, maybe elaborate on some points, and put this stuff to bed. This stuff isn't going to be... There's going to be mild spoilers to this. So basically, if you've seen Justice League 2017, none of the stuff I talk about here is going to be new. However, if you want to go in completely clean, I do recommend maybe just skipping to the next one. So positives, first one, absolutely, Ray Fisher is Cyborg. The character is much more fleshed out. He does a decent job. You can see how much stuff Joss Whedon cut from that original film, because he has given so much more character, more depth to his relationship. He's given more to do. You see the exploration of his character. You see there's actually a bit of hope in his story, which is something that I found really refreshing. And you can see why Ray Fisher was pretty pissed off with that Justice League film, because he is such a one-dimensional character in that one, and here he's a fully fleshed out and developed character. Now, in terms of characters who don't have their own movies or haven't been previously set up in this film, he's the only one I feel that without that own movie, they're still developed and work well. However, the other guys, especially Flash and Aquaman, I'll get to in a second. Second one was Steppenwolf. His motivations were clear. The design makes him look a lot more intimidating, a lot more threatening to the Justice League, and he was a laid character in a sense, in terms of his own personal motivations. However, I'll get to him later as well in terms of my negatives. I thought Wonder Woman was really good in this film for the most part. I'll get to another nitpick I have with her character. But Gal Gadot felt like she was the main character for a good chunk of this film. Really solid. Another good performance from her, having come off Wonder Woman 84, which was so iffy. One great bit of this film was that the action scenes, they were extended. They felt less chaotic, and they felt more focused than the previous Snyder films of BVS and Man of Steel. Another positive is that there was a lot of like power moves and combos compared to Batman v Superman, where they're all just trying to punch Doomsday as hard as they can. Here there was a bit more tactical stuff, like the Flash teaming up with Cyborg, or Batman and Wonder Woman combining, or Batman and Aquaman, so that was a cool element. Of course, this one's a given, but the film felt a lot more tonally consistent with the rest of the DC films. The humor was actually done well. It wasn't really forced like it was, and there weren't those weird running gags like the brunch one in Justice League. The score by Tom Holkenborg, really good, continues, it uses those themes from Hans Zimmer, which I really enjoyed. Darkseid, I mean, he was intimidating, I guess, there's something, and the nightmare footage I found interesting and did perk up at times when it came to vision in the film. However, now to my negatives. So, the big one is the look of the film, the 4:3 aspect ratio. On a small TV screen, I could definitely tell that Zack Snyder might have wanted to edit it and might have seen the lighthouse or something and said, I want to do that. However, this film was definitely not filmed to be presented in such a way, because multiple action scenes, you get to them and they take place and you can't breathe in the massive scale of the film, which is what this franchise has done and what it's built off. Multiple shots were cut off, like the hands were out here and the screen's squashed in like that. There's a scene where the Batmobile's fighting people and the front and back of the Batmobile is cut off, and I feel like it's not meant to look that way. And it feels like a very retroactive choice, like after the fact, oh yeah, I want to do 4x3. In, say, The Lighthouse, when they did it, everyone is in center, or when they aren't in center and it's a landscape shot, the entire frame is utilized. It doesn't feel like they've just cropped the scene, which is a good majority of those big action scenes feel like you aren't getting everything you could want. I still don't get why Zack Snyder hates colors. It is weird in this film. So what it looks like to me personally is that they take some of the scenes are definitely Zack Snyder's raw footage, but then there are some scenes where it looks like they've taken the Whedon edited footage and then they've removed all of the color, but then they've left the hue buttons on, so it's still, the frame still looks very oversaturated at moments, which I found really off-putting. I still feel like Flash and Aquaman would have benefited from their own movies before this. I mean, I get that this is a retroactive movie and yada yada yada, but still that is a problem with the DC universe, that these characters, they just do not feel fleshed out. In the context of this movie, it's okay, but given that these DC movies are so consciously trying to ape off of Marvel's roadmap, that is just a simple flaw that they have not set up these characters well enough. Aquaman in this movie just gets spouted exposition to him about what the Aquaman movie's going to be about, and then he grunts and throws tridents at people. That's his character. And then the Flash makes a couple of jokes. There's a bit more set up to his character, but ultimately not enough. And a lot of these moments that these characters get are not as satisfying as if they had their own movies that really built up these things and set up these motivations. This is a big one for me. Bloodstains on the wall. Whenever a character gets thrown against something, you see blood spurt out the back of their head, which, when Steppenwolf does it, fine, but considering that we just saw a Wonder Woman movie where she doesn't kill anyone, having her in the opening act throw a guy against the wall and then seeing a massive indentation in the wall with blood trickling down it, while we're meant to have this hopeful character in the foreground, really off-putting to me. This one really pissed me off, but the amount of fucking dream sequences in the film really started to get to me after a while. They're often there to just kind of bait you and then pull you away, and that takes you completely out of the film. You might be thinking a scene looks cool or an idea's cool, and then bam, Batman wakes up. And why is it Batman? It doesn't make any sense. I guess my final one is that it is too long for a feature. As a miniseries, I actually do think it works well as 6, say, 40-minute episodes. However, as a feature-length film, multiple scenes go on for so long, and there is so much exposition that we are fed throughout the film. If you tune out for a moment or two, you're gonna miss something important. And, like, the film feels cohesive, but the pacing gets tanked in some of those overly long exposition scenes. There are a lot of scenes where we cut back to Cyborg's dad, who's got to explain to us what the mother boxes are and what this is and what that is and all this other stuff, and it really slows down the film. When it's developing some of the characters, say like Flash or Cyborg, the film is actually well paced, but when it goes back to those more expositional elements, that's when I completely conk out. So would I change my rating from original? I don't think I would. I'd still keep it at a 5.5 as a movie because, as I've said before, I don't like the DCEU, and this is kind of all of the elements of the DCEU coming up full, and I get that a lot of people are going to enjoy that. Absolutely fine, but for me, that's just not what I like out of my superhero movies. However, I was looking for a sequel to Batman vs Superman, and that's what we got. So, honestly, if it was a miniseries, I'd probably give it like a 6.5 or maybe even a 7, pushing it up to that. However, I just can't, and it's a 5.5 for me. Now let's talk about things I want to talk about. So I saw St. Maud, and it's a story of a young devout Christian girl named Katie who goes by the name of Maud. She works as a palliative care nurse, and she takes care of a lymphoma patient. Now this film takes you down an incredibly dark and psychological journey, and it shows the twisting of one's soul through their own faith and other people's lack thereof. And I absolutely loved this film. I've gone through this film twice now, and it keeps getting better the more I think about it. The performances are all so real, and there was never a second that felt like someone was acting due to breaking out in mad soliloquies or screaming to another person. The film told a simple decline or incline, depending how you look at it, of the character of Maud. The cinematography made the film so much more horrifying in how simple and matter-of-fact it was, and the way scenes were lit gave things such as a tea kettle this weird demonic nature. Also, the way that unsettling imagery was shot and edited, paired with the masterful sound design, made me squirm inside, and there were moments where I audibly gasped and yelled while watching the movie, which nowadays is really rare. I honestly haven't felt this disturbed watching a horror movie since maybe The Nightingale back in 2019. It's one of those films that I'd love to make. It's not trying hard to be this grand tale, but rather portray the twisting of a psyche through subtle techniques and how this woman's lust for proselytism just turns her and drives her to madness. This film had an incredible final shot which is going to stay with me for ages. It's amazing. You should go check it out. Saint Maud, 9 out of 10. Another Round was directed by Thomas Vinterberg and stars Mads Mikkelsen. Once again, a movie I really enjoyed, not as much as Saint Maud, but I think it's a fascinating subject matter that is told through a far more interesting lens than what I feel like a Hollywood movie of this would be. It centers around 4 teachers who decide to conduct a social experiment to see what the effects of maintaining a .05 BAC will have on their work, their social life, and their well-being. And the film takes a really interesting look at the subject matter. This is a film that does require a familiarity with the Danish drinking laws that they have, as it's a far more laissez-faire approach in terms of their laws and the idea of underage drinking compared to a lot of other countries. Compared to the USA, where the drinking laws you can't be under 21, and meanwhile in this, underage drinking is almost a commonality over there. The film explores more than just the negative effects, but also the inherent positives, and it merely isn't here to paint a culture of drinking in a bad light, and how it isn't always a one-way slope. The film also has 4 interesting, inherently different main characters, and while all being teachers, their different fields allow us to experience enough variety in the way of the fun teacher. As well as they all want to escape those mundane and somewhat cyclical natures of their profession. The way that the alcohol is portrayed not so much as a poison but as a cure to their insular personality traits really helps you gauge an understanding of the film's purpose. I feel like the way that the film is shot, mostly handheld, gives the film the look of that documentary as they are trying to undertake the experiment, but it still has those cinematic markers and those dramatic scenes. The performances are all solid. Mads Mikkelsen brings an incredible amount of depth to his character. The only flaw is that sometimes viewing the other characters is not as interesting as the other, so there is a little less development of their struggle, but that's about it. The film makes you laugh, feel sad, and then joyous at the end, and it has an incredibly poignant ending, and I really admire the direction that this film took. I'm going to give Another Round 8 out of 10. Really great. So that's all of the movies, guys. What did you think about all of them? I'm sure you have plenty of thoughts, especially about the Snyder Cut. What did you think? Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Young Cynics, and I'll see you again next time. See you guys.